prior to the 20th century, women were only considered as property to their husband and had no rights to vote. These women were looked upon as nothing more than pretty objects polished to finishing school and becoming the perfect housewife. Their minds were considered delicate and inferior to males, and if one was brave enough to voice their opinion, they were oftentimes ignored or pushed to the side. Today, I'm going to show you what suffrage is, women who were involved in the Women's Suffrage Association, and how it affected the United States today. I would like to start by showing you what the National Women's Suffrage Association is and how it started. Suffrage is the right to vote, especially in a political election. It took women over 100 years of fighting to win that vote, and the campaign was not easy. Speeches were presented, petitions were signed, and many arguments proving that women and men were created equally were shown. The National Women's Suffrage Association had some famous activists, including Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Stanton, and Lucy Stone, who is the founder of the National Women's Suffrage Association. Some refused to support the 19th Amendment and even allies with racist white males from the South, stating that the women's vote would only neutralize the African American population's vote. Therefore, in 1969, this faction formed a group called the National Women's Suffrage Association. They began to fight for universal suffrage amendment to the U.S. Constitution. By 1890, the suffrage approach changed due to there being a new generation of women not wanting to receive rights because men and women were created equal, but because women were different from men. Another group of women under the name National Women's Party was formed by Alice Paul. In the early 1900s, some states in the West began to extend the vote to women for the first time in almost 20 years. Of course, Southerners and Eastern states remained resistant to their rights as women continued to fight for them. Hunger strikes began across the United States, and even a 7-month White House picket was happening. During World War I, women's campaigns slowed down, but women worked hard on behalf of the war effort and was able to prove that they deserved the right to vote. And in 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed. Next, I'm going to discuss some of the activists through their campaign for women to receive the right to vote. One of them was Susan B. Anthony. She is from upstate New York. Her dad was a wealthy Quaker, and she was a temperance activist while teaching at an all-girls school. Whenever she went to a temperance conference for the first time, she was declined the right to speak there just because she was a woman, and this is when she decided that she wanted to fight for her own rights. Even though she died 14 years before the 19th Amendment was passed, she was put on the dollar coin, and the 19th Amendment's nickname is the Anthony Amendment. The next person that I'm going to talk about is Alice Paul. She is known for being the leader of the most militant wing of the women's suffrage movement and fought hard to have the right to vote. She and other activists were even arrested for staging a 7-month picket of the White House and even attempted to starve themselves in jail. The movie Iron-Jawed Angel portrays his experience and even shows how women were force-fed and the entire time that they were imprisoned. Once his mistreatment was publicly shown, the women were released from prison and went back to living their lives. The last person I'm going to talk about is Ida B. Wells. Even though she is best known for her work as a crusading journalist and anti-lynching activist, she still plays a huge role in giving women the right to vote. She wrote for the city's black newspaper called The Free Speech, where she discussed Jim Crow laws in the South, women's suffrage in the South, and the lynching of innocent people. Now we're going to discuss how these actions and sacrifices of these women are still affecting people today. Women can now vote, join the military, work work in better conditions, join political parties, and even join Congress or the Senate. Even though these women have fought for their equality, there is still a need to be done in this world in order to shrink the gap in gender inequality. According to MS Magazine, the voter turnout rates for women have exceeded the rates for men, with women casting votes between 4 to 7 million more than men in the United States. With women dominating the political voting, there is still few women that have top management fields in big corporations, and even though their women in the workforce has risen. In Congress, there are 17 out of the 100 women or 17 out of 100 seats filled by women, and in the Senate, 92 out of the 435 seats are women in the Senate as well. I'm going to end my speech with the quote, "Courage in women is often mistaken for insanity." This was stated by a doctor who examined Alice Paul when the government was trying to prove her suicidal for having a hunger strike while she was in prison. Thank you.